Hello there. May 29th is it's Democracy Day. Now, all of May, I'll be talking about national development, politics, and all of that. But as a teaser, as we get towards May, this last week in April, I've chosen to bring two young people to join me on set to talk about national development and interventions. Interventions being that there's always something you can do to make life better, not only for you, but for others as well. Now, these two people do interventions in very interesting ways. When we return, we'll start our conversation with somebody who flies sick people across the world, starting from West Africa and Africa. I'll be right back on the show with my two guests, if you don't go away. Welcome back. It's my pleasure to introduce my first guest, not only because she's a woman, but she's a woman that is after creating impact, making impact by first making money. But it's impact, money, and development. It's my pleasure to welcome Ola Orekunrin-Brown now.
Yes.
To Seriously Speaking.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you.
Lovely to see you
How do you describe
again.
someone like you who at age 14, one of your heroes was Aliko Dangote? You know, I mean, how does a 14-year-old Nigerian British set off dreaming about becoming like Aliko Dangote?
I think growing up in England and being born in England, you have a different experience from when you grew up in Nigeria. So when you grow up in Nigeria, you see a lot of people that look like you in doing great things. So you see them in the Senate. They're all black, right? Because they all have to be Nigerian. You see your president, you see your vice president, you see the owners of the banks and the owners of the airlines and the owners of all your big companies, Nigerians. So you can kind of see yourself in big business. You can see yourself quite clearly in big politics. You can see yourself in any position of leadership. But I grew up in a really small, almost all-white town called Lowestoft in England. So the only people that I saw sort of in big business or celebrity, maybe Michael Jackson was one that I saw, but apart from that, I didn't really see myself in a lot of the people that have had achieved a lot, either in sort of the entertainment industry, in film, or in politics. So you can imagine like how amazed I was when I heard about, started engaging with the Nigerian media a bit more, and I heard about people like Dangote. He immediately became my hero because I was like, this is a man that has achieved something in Nigeria, a country that I wasn't particularly familiar with, but he had achieved something amazing.
Even though you left England very early, you're already business-minded because you had this focus of trying to be successful. You'd sold all sorts of things, sold shoes and all of that. So where did that entrepreneurial drive come from?
Entrepreneurial drive. I wanted to, more than anything, I wanted to make sure that I had some kind of impact in the world beyond what I was currently doing and what I saw in my environment. And I'm not sure that it's so much entrepreneurship as wanting to be successful and wanting to make impact. I wanted to make some kind of change in my community, wanting to make things better and leaving some kind of legacy behind.
And you knew you needed money to do that?
Yes, definitely. So my foster mom, for instance, she died recently. She died at Christmas and she brought us up. She raised us. She's a white lady and she raised us. And one of the things, when I was giving my eulogy to her, one of the most worrying things for me was I really, really wanted to publish her story on my blog on Medium because I wanted to make sure that she had a legacy. I was very, very worried about her legacy. I was very, very worried about people, you know, coming in 50 years' time and not knowing such a great woman existed. So for me, legacy is really important. The way you leave the world behind is very important, and the impact that you had, I guess, has always been important to me from quite a young age.
I guess that's why Flying Doctors happened.
Yeah,
and decided to make an impact because it was Flying Ambulance.
Yes.
Very briefly, tell us what it's about.
So we're a medical transportation service, and I think most people would agree that people that die all over the world don't necessarily die because the treatment isn't available anywhere. They mostly die because they're at the wrong place at the wrong time. So what we do is try and get patients to the right medical facility within the right time frame so that more people survive injuries and survive medical emergencies. And within Nigeria, the right place could be Abuja, it could be Lagos, it's definitely not in some village with poor healthcare infrastructure. Within West Africa, the right place could be Nigeria, because don't forget that a lot of our surrounding countries don't actually have the healthcare infrastructure that we have. And we move people around West Africa as well. So we do transfers from, say, Liberia to Ghana. So a lot of our business actually doesn't end up in Nigeria.
And this was inspired by the death of your sister, right here in Nigeria.
Yes. So she was on holiday and we had a medical transportation problem. We wanted to move her and we couldn't. And I started thinking, you know, compared to America that has a very, I think the last statistic I read is there's 1 million air ambulance transfers in America alone. A lot of the companies are listed on the American Stock Exchange. Air ambulance companies are, you know, really big businesses. Compared to Nigeria, where even in West Africa, we couldn't find an air ambulance and we eventually had to look for the service in South Africa. I just thought that this could be my way of building that legacy and having that impact and saving lives in a way that perhaps hasn't been done in this region before.
Hearing your story, one would expect that, it must be very rosy for you here. You've not left Nigeria regardless, but let me take a break and then I'll meet my second guest before we all engage. Thank you, Ola.
Thank you.
We'll be back. Yes, welcome back. My next guest is Ayo Adio. I think besides the fact that he's a co-host on giving all his ideas on Morning Digest with Jimmy Disu, is the fact that he wrote this book, scathing and very, very in different ways, commenting on Nigeria's problems. And I would have myself laughing and in some almost crying. And I thought, this is one commentator I would like to engage someday. So it's my pleasure to welcome Ayo Adio to the set.
Thank you very much for having
me. I'm happy to welcome you, but I thought you were much older than this, for crying out loud. And I was reading you and enjoying you, you know?
I hear that a lot, that first time people meet me, you know, I'm always hiding behind the headphones and the microphones and the radio station. So the first time people meet me and they're like, we thought you were way older than this.
Yeah, because of the kind of sense you seem to make. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
You make sense to some, it may not be to others.
Yeah.
And I wonder why you titled your book The Odd One In.
Yeah, basically, because I felt like at some point it seemed that it was very few of us who wanted a different country, who wanted a different Nigeria. And the fact that I was still in the system and being the odd one in the system, because I wasn't out, because typically you wanted an odd one out, but I was still in the system. So I was an odd person living in the system of the Nigerian reality.
Why did you go study medical biology if you knew that, it seems like politics seems like a natural thing for you?
Yeah, you're correct, but the course you study in university has nothing to do with politics, because politics is all-encompassing. Whether you study medicine, law, or anthropology, you could still make a very good politician. And to us here in Nigeria, you must be interested in politics. You have to be interested in the quality of the people that govern you. Otherwise, you'll be led by second 11.
Have you always been like that? I know that you've organized all kinds of conferences, and you grew up in Kano.
Yeah, I did grow up in Kano.
And you were born in Kwara?
Born in Kano, actually.
Oh, born in Kano?
Yeah, I was born in Kano. Yeah.
And when did you leave Kano?
I left Kano sometime in 2013. That was
You're already literally an adult. Already.
Oh, yes, sometime in 2013, right after, the major Boko Haram attack in Kano State.
So is it that experience that have made you to be some kind of, I would describe it as a detribalized Nigerian, because I see you when you write, when you talk, you have no fear about, even criticizing even our president, if you have to.
Yeah, I think I'm a completely detribalized Nigerian. First of all, I was born in Kano, so I typically understand what it is to be a Hausa man. For any other reason, I should be a typical Kano man, if you'd like.
You're dressed like one.
If we didn't even have an emphasis of states of origin, I would pass for a Kano person. My dad is Yoruba. My mom has a bit of Shakiri in her. So if you look at me critically, I have all shades, whether it's Hausa, Yoruba, Shakiri. So I'm a full-blooded Nigerian, like I like to tell people. So I speak 4 languages: Hausa, Yoruba, Shakiri, English, and a few patches of Igbo here and there. So
you seem to be very dissatisfied with the level of our leadership, not necessarily the followership. Yeah. You seem to be more particular about the leadership. Why so?
Oh, yes. I have to be honest
because
with you.
Because we blame the followership for electing the kind of leaders that they elect all the time.
That's why you have leaders. Leaders are supposed to be there to give direction to the people. And unfortunately for Nigeria, since 1960, the quality of our leadership has been, forgive me, dismal. And I'd like to make a very simple example. You have right across the country, people are still queuing for petroleum products. If you step outside Lagos, in other cities, people are still queuing to buy petrol. And that's amazing because as far back as 1870, John D. Rockefeller had built pipelines from Ohio to Pennsylvania, 4,000 miles, that's 6,400 kilometers, to move his petroleum products.
We have pipelines.
Are they working?
Why
in 2018, you still don't have pipe, you still can't move your product from Kano to the Kaduna refinery. That's the quality of the leadership you have. Unfortunately, this group of leaders that we have, sad as it may seem, are not prepared for the future of Nigeria without oil. And that's a reality that we have to confront. Because, for instance, in 2023, the Americans will be the largest producers of oil. And of course, I mean, it's estimated that the global demand of petroleum products will drop by 8 million barrels of oil per day. Imagine the cataclysmic consequences that we have to our revenues that is totally dependent on crude.
So what I hear you say is that our leaders are not even thinking that far.
Exactly.
They're just thinking about getting power, because that's what you always say.
It's just a vicious cycle. They keep thinking about the next elections and not the next generation. And that's quite sad.
So I'll talk about that turning point generation. When I want you and Ola to discuss this with me, I'll take a break. Thank you, Ayo, for accepting. Your schedule is busy. We've been trying to schedule this thing forever, you know. But I'll be right back with my team. Let's talk about how that El Dorado shall happen. Maybe you'll find your own niche from that conversation. Yes, welcome back. I'm in the studios with, these are 30-something-year-olds who want to change the country. And I just wonder whether they'll run for political office. Let me start with you. Will you ever run for political office?
I wouldn't count that out, but I think that you can make as much impact, maybe even more impact, in the private sector as you can in politics. So, for example, like Bill Gates, well, I've not proven it.
You only like very rich people.
Bill Gates, with his foundation, makes as much impact as sort of any political leader as a member of the private and non-profit sector. And I think that people should not only think that it's political office, that you can really make, that you can make impact. You can make impact from the private sector, you can make impact from the non-profit sector, and of course, you can make impact from public sector. So I wouldn't rule out running for office, but I think I make a lot of impact as a private citizen.
What I find interesting, though, you have said now you're willing to put your money where your mouth is for those who are interested in politics. So that's one way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. You have some money to give out?
So
the business is good, right?
Yes. So one of the things that I've started doing now is trying to work with women running for office, because, as you know, women have significant sort of disadvantage when they want to run for public office. Number one, they usually don't have money, and that's one way that I can help. Number two, the cultural environment that we find ourselves in is very difficult, in that women aren't encouraged to be leaders. In fact, there's a likability penalty that you do pay as a female politician, because, you know, a man that has money and a man that is ambitious is actually more likable and more eligible for marriage. A woman that has ambition and is rich and, you know, wants to make a difference and has all the qualities of a leader is actually less likable and less
so it's a tougher journey for them.
So it's a tougher journey. So we've started looking at certain female politicians running from anything from councillor to House of Rep to Senate. Obviously, I can't support anybody going for governor, but at least the small things and the grassroots, we've started trying to support them.
And this is the Flying Doctors?
In a personal capacity,
this
nothing to do with flying doctors. Just trying to support them, trying to offer mentorship and trying to offer money.
So obviously, impact is important to you. You've chosen, right, besides being a communication strategist, you want to support people who can get there. Do you want to get there yourself too someday?
Yeah, of course, like you rightfully said. For now, I'm you know, putting my skills to help those candidates I feel would make some sort of a difference in public office. Of course, 4 or 5 years from now, I'll be running for office myself.
Well, that's, I mean, it's very nice to know that what you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, because let's be honest, and I'm particularly going to be running not for executive office, but in the legislative arm of government, because it does seem that those individuals don't stand up enough for the people that they represent. We're always looking for them. I mean, you look at Lagos State, for instance, if I asked you who was representing you in your constituency, you probably wouldn't even know. So I think Nigerians need people that will go into those offices and fight for them, and fight for the things that matter to them. The hope and the future of this country is resting squarely on the shoulders of young people who have the courage to imagine a Nigeria that is prosperous, and who are willing to roll up their sleeves and pull up their socks and work as hard as they can to ensure that this change happens. Because as we speak, the World Poverty Check is beginning to talk about us having more poor people than even India, that's having a population of 1 billion people. So there's a whole lot of work for young people to do.
I must go. There's never enough time. I'll invite you again, hopefully towards 2019, and I'd like to have both of you on the show again. Thank you, Ola, and all the best with Flying Doctors. Thank you, Ayo, and all the best with your book. And you, thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week.